Hey guys, how you doing? It's Tom. It is time we have a conversation regarding immigration. So first, let's get the elephant out of the room. Racist, xenophobic. Anytime anyone supports Trump's immigration policies, they're instantly called a racist, they're called xenophobic. And the reason for this is the politicians who don't want you to understand the actual issues want you to only consider the least common denominator. They want you to assume the intentions of Donald Trump. They want you to assume the intentions of his supporters, right? Anyone who supports Donald Trump is a Nazi. Anyone who supports his immigration policies must be in the KKK. And this has a powerful effect because it stops people from actually hearing out the argument. So first, let's review the claim. Are Trump's immigration policies racist? Well, Trump so far, if maybe you don't see this on the mainstream media, but so far Trump has actually essentially offered amnesty to the Dreamers, right? He offered the Democrats a deal where the Dreamers can stay in this country and stay in America, and if they don't commit a crime for the next 12 years, they go through the proper paperwork process that they could actually achieve amnesty. They could become American citizens in 12 years, not get deported. In exchange, all Trump wanted was, all he asked for is a border wall, an ending to the visa lottery program, an ending to chain migration, and to implement a merit-based immigration system. And the Democrats turned this down. So you can't say that Trump, his policy is based on racism when it's clearly based on common sense. It's not racist to allow the Dreamers to stay in America. So the Democrats say Trump is holding the country hostage using the Dreamers. Is he? Because all he is saying is that the Dreamers could stay, but we have to secure the borders so more people can't come here illegally. But the Democrats are saying that you either have to let people who aren't American citizens come into the country illegally, or we're going to have to possibly throw the Dreamers out. Who's holding the country hostage? The person saying that the American citizens can stay and let's secure our borders, or the person saying we need to let more people come into the country or we just can't reach a deal on these people that are already here. So I would argue that it's the Democrats who are in fact using the Dreamers as a political football to hold the country hostage. Securing the border is just common sense. Imagine we were on a boat. Imagine we were on the Titanic and we're out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And the boat starts to sink, and there's only so many lifeboats versus so many people. If everyone on the Titanic gets on a lifeboat, the lifeboat's going to sink, and everyone's going to die. So you have to make a decision how many people could fit on that lifeboat. Well, there are 6 billion people in the world, and only about 350 million people in the United States of America. So you can't let all of those people come here or the country would quickly crumble in on itself. So anytime you're having a conversation about immigration, you have to ask yourself, how many people am I comfortable with allowing to come into the country? And anything above that number, you can't let them in. So the first way you do that is you have legal immigration, not illegal immigration. So it's very common sense to secure the border. You say, oh, well, you don't need a wall to secure the border. Well, here's the problem. The Democratic Party, for reasons we'll get into, and large amounts of the rhinos, the Republican in name only Republican Party, who pretend to be conservative in ideology but aren't, want the borders open for reasons we'll get into. So if you don't build the wall, then in 4 years, 8 years when Trump's gone, they're just going to defund border security And again, they're going to let mass numbers of immigrants come in, and we'll be having the same conversation about the New Age dreamers. So you have to secure the border wall. That's common sense. We're going to secure the wall so we know who's coming into the country. We know how many people are coming into the country. Immigration will now be done legally. So check. That's completely rational of Trump. It's not racist. But the politicians tell you it's racist because they don't want you to understand these concepts. So right now, America's immigration policy works on the visa lottery program. So basically they say, we need more diversity. And they pick people, whatever it is, don't quote me on this, but 15% of people from Ghana, and 10% of people from Libya, and 5% of people from South Africa, and 7% of people from Guatemala. And they have a lottery, and they let these people in. Now the criterion for this lottery, it's something like completed high school, work a job in your home country, and complete high school, work a job in your home country, and have some base of education, which is fine. I would like to see the criterion be different than that, and we'll get into that. So you have this visa lottery, and itself is racist because you're saying we need 5 black people, 5 white people, 5 Spanish people. You're judging people completely by the color of their skin. So you bring these people here, and then you pair that with what's known as chain migration. And here's where it gets really sketchy. So the people that are already here can bring their mother, their father, their children, their spouse, their unmarried spouse, their brothers, their sisters. So simply by you having a relative in the United States, regardless of what your credentials are, you could come into the country. And this is about 225,000 people a year, 1 million people every 4 years, 2 million people every 8 years. It's a lot of people when you start getting into 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And because of that, a lot of these people aren't self-sufficient. So what happens is they come to America and they're unable to support themselves economically, right? A lot of them aren't educated. A lot of them don't even speak English, so that eliminates you from a lot of jobs just in where you have to speak with people. You have to deal with people, can't speak English, that's a problem. So what happens is these people get put onto the welfare state, right? I mean, you get food stamps, Medicare, free housing. So, and if they have children, right, they get all types of benefits. I mean, you could get up to, easily, you have a child, you come here, you don't have a job, $70,000 in benefits. And what this does is it kills the middle class because taxes go up in the middle class. And now people that are in the middle class, what used to have a chance at the American dream, right? You make a little bit of money, you're able to reinvest that money into the economy, which helps the overall economy, which gives people in the lower class, I don't like the term of that, but people who have less money, who are less well off, now there's more businesses because middle class people are investing in their own businesses, chasing their own American dream, and this rising tide raises all ships. So now you have people who are in the lowest economic class who have the chance to rise to the middle class. And you have people in the middle class who have the chance to rise to the upper echelon of financial success, this is the American dream, and it's a beautiful thing. But this gets hampered because their taxes are going up to pay for people who are coming here from other countries who can't support themselves. And this also, it has a second negative effect in that the immigrants that come here through the visa program, through chain migration, that are able to work are usually working low-skilled jobs. So when they get these low-skilled jobs, they're taking away opportunities from Americans who might only have a high school degree. So now this is hurting a lot of poor people in inner cities, hurts a lot of white people, also hurts a lot of African Americans, and hurts a lot of people who come here legally who are Hispanic. So now they're unable to get jobs, but that's all right. Just throw them on the government welfare program. They can't get a job because you gave it to someone that just came here from Guatemala who can't speak English. So this also creates another effect. Now these low-skilled jobs, there is a greater supply of worker than there is demand for workers. So now these big corporations, and this is why the Republicans who are bought and paid for, who claim to be for this border security but actually aren't, people like Paul Ryan, people like John McCain, they don't want it because this actually drives the wages that corporations could pay workers down. Because now they can say, all right, we'll offer $10 an hour, and if an American won't take that, well, someone who just came here from another country, well, great. They're able to pay workers less, and workers aren't able to get more money. Whereas if these workers weren't brought in from other countries, it has the opposite effect because now there's a greater demand for workers than there is supply of jobs. So if the immigrants weren't here, what would happen is, you always hear, right, the myth. There's jobs that immigrants will do that Americans just won't do. That is such a fundamental misunderstanding of basic economics. If there's a job, let's call the job shoveling shit. A lot of people don't want to shovel shit. So this corporation, this business, whatever it might be, says, okay, I have a job opening. Come shovel shit for me, $10 an hour. And the American citizens look at that and say, I have better opportunities. I'm not going to shovel your shit for $10. Well, they still need the shit shoveled. So what happens is, if they can't bring people in from third world countries, which is what they do, they say, okay, it's been a month, $11 an hour. Anyone want to shovel shit for $11 an hour? No? 12? No? 13? Oh, look at that. The minimum wage is raising outside of legality, all on its own because supply and demand. Because they're going to keep raising the wage to shovel that shit until they find someone willing to shovel that shit. So now you get $15 an hour for shoveling that shit. I apologize for the language, but I think it's necessary for this immigration debate. Now, get back to the illegal immigration. This massive welfare state not only incentivizes people to come here through the visa lottery program through chain migration, but it also incentivizes people to come here legally because they know, right? I mean, you don't blame these people. You're in a third world country to many reasons that are no fault of their own. Some would argue shithole countries because their politicians are so corrupt and they've sold out the country and there's limited individual liberty. And because of that, people are unable to get ahead in Mexico and many countries in South America. Socialist Venezuela. So now you have this magnet. You have this welfare state that is, you could come to America and the American government will give you $70,000 that they'll steal from middle-class workers so the middle-class workers can't reinvest that in themselves and their own hopes and dreams and then use that reinvestment to hire the poorest Americans and raise them to the middle class. No. We'll take the money from them and we'll give it to you if you just come to America. So there's this huge magnet pulling immigrants to America. Now, there was always a metaphorical dam, blocking a wave of immigrants who wanted to come into America. But here's the difference. The wave right now, the dam is blocking the wave of immigrants who are going to come here and receive maybe up to $70,000 of benefits that's being stolen directly from the U.S. taxpayer. When you say, oh, America's a country of immigrants, all right, it sure is. But when your grandparents came here, there wasn't this massive welfare state. So the deal was that people could come here, but you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. We're not going to give you food stamps. We're not going to pay for your housing. We're not going to give you Medicaid. So people came here, and if you couldn't pay for yourself, that's too bad. You better get involved in the local church. the local community center, and this is why people stay in local communities, and this is why people used to be closer, the world used to be safer, because people would take care of each other. But now you have this big welfare state. Don't worry, the government's going to take care of you. So people come here today, government give them $70,000. People came here when our grandparents came here, and they took care of themselves. And to me, that's where the real immigration debate starts, because ideologically speaking, I am all for open borders, right? If you want to have a true free society where you can pick yourself up through rugged individualism, which was what America was originally supposed to be, then I'm all for it. Come on here. But if the immigration system is come here, and now America has to pay for you, and you're destroying the American middle class, and you're preventing people from the poorest Americans from raising to the middle class, then we can't have a conversation about immigration. So you can't have this immigration until we get rid of the welfare state. And this is why in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, there was the greatest rise in people getting out of the poorest economic class to the middle class in the history of the world. And this included white people, black people, Spanish people, Irish people, Italian people. This was everyone, because there wasn't the Great Society. There wasn't this massive welfare state. And there wasn't the 1965 Immigration Act, which allowed this mass, unchecked immigration coming into the country. So these things put together have completely taken away the economic freedom of American citizens. It's an attack on you. It's not about... So when we talk about changing the immigration system, it's not about racism. It's not about xenophobia. It's about economics 101. It's about common sense. Because these politicians who are claiming everything is racist, these are the most corrupt people in the world. They don't care about you if you're black. They don't care about you if you're Spanish. They don't care about you if you're white. They care about money and power, which is why they want, we already went over why the Republicans want the open borders. This is why they want these, well, the Republicans in name only, which is the entire Republican power structure, which is why that party is so corrupt, because they don't claim to be what they claim to be, and give it, they also fly in the face of individual liberties. I could get going about how they've been wrong on the topic of gay marriage and things like that, separation of church and state, as long as the state isn't forcing a religious institution to recognize the marriage, then who cares what the state does? Say flies in the face of individual liberty. So why do the Democrats want this? Because in creating the welfare state, and really I would argue that the entire structure of the government from the top, the oligarchs, what they try to do is increase the power of government. So you do that through the welfare state, which is why you see them push the identity politics. We need to raise taxes, white versus black, gay versus straight. It's all about increasing taxation, increasing the government's ability to pick winner and losers, programs like affirmative action, things of this nature, because it's increasing the power of the government. So you flood the West. You see this all over Europe as well, but you flood America with these immigrants you're putting them right on the welfare state, and if you're not putting them, soon their family comes here and you're putting their family right on the welfare state, and what you're getting is a permanent voting class. This is what they want. A class of people who will permanently remain in poverty because the way the system is set up, right, we went over the supply and demand, we went over middle class people not being able to reinvest into their hopes and dreams, which increases the potential for people, the poorest Americans, to raise themselves into the middle class. So you create a permanent dependency class, dependent on the welfare state, who will continuously vote in their own interest to increase power. And it works doublefold, because anyone who tries to point this out, you say, racist, 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 racist. And then you see things like the 2018 Grammy Awards, an entire night of popular culture devoted to indoctrinating young minds through propaganda that anyone who wants checks on immigration is racist. So now, not only is it in a whole groups of people best interest to vote, not as only in their best interest to vote for the welfare state, to increase state power, but you've also dehumanized anyone who's trying to tell them a different message, so they won't even listen to the message, right? It's how many people will turn this off. They won't listen to me because they'll say my message is racist, which is ludicrous. So you see, it's all about increasing power, and it's perpetrated against the American people. And what has Trump proposed instead? He's proposed an ending to this chain migration, except certain circumstances, right? People could bring their children. That's common sense. But not their mother, their father, their brother, their sister, their 10th cousin. Change the chain migration so that people could bring just their children. That's common sense. And get rid of the visa lottery program and make it a merit-based system. A merit-based system doesn't mean that people can't come. When he calls them shithole countries, it doesn't mean that people can't come from Africa, people can't come from Haiti, but it means that people have to demonstrate a couple of things. One, they speak English because you want to fit into the culture. If you want to be in the work environment in America, you generally have to speak English. Two, that you already have an education. We're not subsidizing your education because that's taking away the education from an American. And limit the chain migration, be educated, and show that you, upon coming here, can already have a job lined up. And not just a job that provides benefit to the country. American citizenship is the crown jewel of the world. So make people come here that show they could be a doctor, that shows they could be a heart surgeon, that show they could start a business right off the bat. They have some capital. They're going to start a business in America and hire Americans. This is common sense. They're hiring black people. They're hiring Spanish people. I mean, American citizenship is like the sexiest girl at the bar. She's the sexiest girl at the bar. She's a 10. She's a dime. And she's at the bar. And if you're gay, he's the sexiest man at the bar. You should see those pecs. They're sparkling. So you got the sexiest man or the sexiest woman. And they essentially have their pick of every person at the bar. Are they going to just sleep with the first person that comes up to them? Or are they going to take their time, do it right, find someone sexy, handsome, intelligent, sweet, compassionate? If they themselves are not just sexy but intelligent, they'll find someone who is defined by a virtue rather than or not just outside characteristics. But they have their choice at the point, just like America has its choice, to choose the most qualified people in the world who not only could come here and get a job, but can already demonstrate that by coming here they can create jobs for Americans. This is what immigration should be. It's not about racism. It's not about xenophobia. This is how they dumb down the message to the least common denominator to dehumanize whoever wants to talk about common sense immigration reform. We need to wake up in America because they're going to keep flooding America with people from the third world who are going to be put on the welfare state, who are going to continue to vote more and more for the welfare state. And what's going to happen is the collective is going to win, and in the end, the only loser will be your individual liberty.